Uh, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's hard to tell whether the voice is a real person or not, but thank you for the introduction. As you've been told, my name is Son Ji-ae, Korea's Ambassador for Cultural Cooperation. The other titles that you've just heard. I'm very, very happy to be here moderating this session, which I am hoping and I'm sure will be a eye-opening one for many of us, both Koreans and otherwise, who live in a world that seems to be really captivated by Korean culture. Our speakers today, as you can see, and many of them will be very familiar to many Koreans, they belong to a very exclusive club. They are non-Koreans, but those who live in Korea, work in Korea, and in most cases actually speak Korean better than most Koreans. And I know they speak better than me. So they have a very unique perspective on Korea and Korean culture, which we are hoping to tap into. So definitely we'll start the session off by getting their unique insights and giving us a better understanding of where we stand and possibly where we need to go. So we have a lot of insights waiting for us on the stage. So without further ado, I'm going to start off. We have 3 speakers and then we have 4 discussants, but we'll start off with our speakers. And at the end of the session, we're hoping to move along very quickly so that we can get some questions from the audience. Now, to start us off, we in the Korean Wave area, we have with us Mr. Mark Teto, and oh, by the way, we've all decided we're all going to go on a first name basis. So, we're all going to be, Mark, GA, and the rest. So, your understanding would be greatly appreciated. So, to start us off in the Korean Wave, we have with us on to my left, Mr. Mark Teto. He is a commissioner, member of the Cultural Commission on Cultural Diplomacy. But of course, his main job, is a CEO of TCK Investments. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you, Mark.
Great, thank you, GA. Yes, I think 3 of us have been asked to start with brief remarks each, kind of on the topic of Korean Wave from a different perspective. Specifically for myself, Korean traditional culture and the Korean Wave. How do these fit together? Perhaps you can get a hint from the screen. This photo you see there next to my bio is me sitting in my house in Seoul. And the house is a hanok. So clearly I think a lot about Korean traditional culture. And does that have anything to do with the Korean Wave as we think of it today? Korean traditional arts, architecture, food, culture. Are these part of the Korean Wave? How can we bring the Korean Wave to bear on these parts of Korean culture as well? So I'll speak briefly about that in my prepared remarks. So I'll jump right in. I think when most people clearly today think about the Korean Wave, they think of 2 things primarily: K-pop as the beginning of the Korean Wave, and followed closely by Korean dramas. And if this is kind of the first part of the Korean Wave, K-pop and dramas, what is next? Is there a next? Does it keep going from here? Is it all about K-pop and dramas? And I think it's a mistake to think that K-pop and dramas are the end of the conversation. Rather, I think that they're the beginning. They may have put Korea on the world's cultural map to begin with. They're sort of the first flag that's been planted in this sort of Korean cultural wave. But is it the end? I don't think so. And so let's just imagine for a moment fans in the US or in Europe, someone encountering Korean Wave, Korean pop, and Korean dramas for the first time. So you imagine someone watching a music video of BTS, or you imagine someone watching a K-drama like Mr. Sunshine. These are things that have become popular outside of Korea, and very much so. So picture someone watching this BTS video or this Mr. Sunshine drama, And what's going to happen? First, they're going to become a fan of this content. They'll become a fan of BTS. They'll become a fan of Mr. Sunshine. But perhaps you'd be surprised to know, or maybe hopefully not surprised to know, we're very curious when we consume this content. It's not just that this is a good song or this is a good drama. This is our first exposure to this whole new world, right? And so you're watching this music video, and you're probably going to ask, as a fan, what is that outfit that Suga is wearing in that BTS video? That looks interesting. I've never seen that before. What is that interesting wooden building on the set? That's architecture I've never seen before. That's fascinating. That's beautiful. I want to know more. What is that interesting Korean dish that they're eating on that TV show? And there's this voracious hunger and appetite to know more. So it doesn't just stop with the music video or the drama itself. That is just a starting point that makes us interested in this whole new world of Korean culture. And so I think that's where the conversation goes from here, beyond K-pop and beyond K-drama, to these things that K-pop and K-drama expose us to, these parts of Korean culture. So beyond the K-pop and drama, you might be interested to know that some of these other things have started to go viral, these things that people first encounter on the screen, and then they get very into and ask a lot of questions. So I'll just give 3 quick examples of things that have started to go viral beyond K-pop and drama. Starting with the dramas that you see on Netflix, like the Kingdom drama that was widely popular around the world, this Joseon Dynasty zombie drama on Netflix. Again, it's just a drama. Sure, that means someone's interested in Korean TV, but they're watching it, and do you know that after watching that, interestingly, globally, there was a viral sensation about Korean hats. I was telling this to GA. People thought, what are these cool hats that people wore in Korea in the Joseon Dynasty? They're kind of like, they have wings around the sides, and they're made of this kind of almost translucent mesh material. And so the word gat, which is the word for these hats in Korean, began to trend globally, and it became part of people's Halloween costumes in the US that year. And there was this whole phenomenon to want to learn about these hats. Coincidentally, not just the hats, not just the gat, but piño was also a word that trended globally. There's a website that I contribute to where we have articles about various aspects of Korean culture. And all of a sudden, overnight, the article about piño, where we described what is piño, these hairpins, these long hairpins of Joseon Dynasty, became the most read article on the site ever in its history. And because it was introduced to people through the K-drama. So that's clothing. People got interested in gat, in piño. What about other things? Korean traditional cooking started to take off and trend virally. What do I mean by that? Of course, people start to know about tteokbokki and bulgogi in the rest of the world, and kimchi, obviously. But interestingly, there was another Netflix documentary called Chef's Table. And in Chef's Table, the team go around the world to each country, and usually to the top Michelin restaurant in that country. And they go and interview that Michelin chef about the food. But this team came to Korea, and interestingly, they didn't go to a Michelin restaurant. They went deep into the wilderness, and they found a monk, a Buddhist monk, Jeongwan S님, and they were amazed by this traditional, natural form of cooking which had existed in Korea for hundreds and hundreds of years in the form of Buddhist cooking. And that was one of the most popular episodes on the show. And they brought Jeongwan S님 to New York to a Michelin restaurant and had her cook for many, many people. And they were amazed. What is this kind of traditional cooking? So we see it not just in clothing, like the Kingdom drama, but we see in the Netflix Chef's Table, we see food taking off. And then a topic near and dear to my heart, Korean traditional homes, hanok, architecture. And I'll give a quick example there. After moving to the home you see in the picture on the screen, there were kind of some music talents around me that they said, hey, could we come film a music video at your house? And this was 2015, and it was a group of rappers who weren't that well known yet. They were just taking off. And these Korean rappers came and they filmed a music video called Freestyle. The word in Korean, so E-U-N-G, freestyle. And this took off virally. No one expected much. These artists were all early in their careers. And of course, the song was amazing, which is why it took off. But also, in part, people were really interested in this house that was the backdrop of this video. And so just with these three examples, you see that the starting point, the 출발점, might be K-pop and K-drama. But that's just the opening of the door for people. That's just the gateway. Then they're going to be interested in the clothing, in the food, in the Korean traditional architecture. I did not choose these three examples by accident. I chose them on purpose because this shows to me a fascinating thing that Korea has to teach the world about culture. Clothing, food, the house that I mentioned, it fits into this unique framework of culture that I think we have in Korea that I haven't heard elsewhere. When we use the word culture in Korea, we usually use the word 문화. We're talking about 한국 문화. That's one word we use for culture. But interestingly, there's a lot of times where we use a different word as a construct for culture in Korea. And we use the word 의식주, 한국 전통 의식주. And it just means really, culture to us, lifestyle, Korean lifestyle is 의, which is the clothing, and 식, which is the food, and 주, which is the house and everything in it. And so very interesting. These are the things that are taking off in the examples I just gave you. Korean 의식주. So I had a conversation with GA before. I think in the beginning, when we used to talk about Korean cultural diplomacy and K-wave, people were asking, where is Korea? What is Korea? And they didn't have a base knowledge. But now that they're encountering all of these things through K-pop and K-drama, now their next questions are going to be, tell me about the clothing, tell me about the food that I'm seeing, tell me about the traditional architecture, tell me about the traditional costume that I'm seeing. And so now we have to be ready to answer their questions. And so that's the next phase, I think, of the Korean wave. We have to be ready to answer people's much deeper questions about these things because they're so curious. And I think here the important point to me is, first, we who are living here have to appreciate and value these things first. There's an irony here where it's actually sometimes easier for the foreigner to come and value it more because the foreigner comes and it's all new. So we had this discussion about my Hanok house. Most of my Korean friends say, oh, you live in a Hanok. Isn't it uncomfortable? That's the kind of house my grandmother used to live in. Isn't it just an old house? And I said, no. When the foreigner goes to this Hanok village, we think, whoa, this is amazing. This is beautiful. Why isn't this a UNESCO Heritage Registered Landmark? It is, by the way, a UNESCO Heritage Registered Landmark. But Koreans are almost amazed that, to me, it was just an old house where my grandmother used to live in. So I think we have to start there. Number one, we have to start by appreciating the beauty that we have here right in front of us ourselves. It's not just an old building. Hanbok is not just an old style thing that people used to wear and now only wear at weddings. It's a beautiful and amazing new thing to us. So we have to first value it ourselves. And secondly, we have to do now the hard work of storytelling. When the foreigners come, which they will, they come in waves to visit Bukchon Hanomaul and to do tourism in Korea. They will ask us the questions now. Tell me the story of these houses. Tell me the story of this clothing. And I think a lot of times we're woefully unprepared to tell this story. Let me just close there about the importance of storytelling. When someone comes to Seoul, they're going to say, what should I go see? Where should I go? Wouldn't it be great if we were able to tell them the story of the 5 palaces of Seoul? And we can tell them the story of the progression of each palace, and Gyeongbokgung led to a summer palace in Changdeokgung and Changgyeonggung, right? And then Deoksugung was where the final house of the Empire of Korea was. If we could tell them that story, then they'll think, I should go visit these places. No one really knows that story. People, if they're lucky, will visit Gyeongbokgung and never know that there was 4 other palaces that they should have visited, right? There's a story that we need to tell about hanbok. When the tourists come, they want to try on hanbok and walk around Bukchon Hanomaul. There are rental shops for the tourists to rent hanboks, but I can tell you that most of the hanboks in those shops are not actually hanboks. They're kind of Disney princess dresses with glitter and all these things. You know why that makes me sad? It's because we failed to value the traditional hanbok, and we failed to tell them the real story of hanbok. But if they could just hear the story, they'll love the story. There's a hunger for that. So that's my closing point. We have to value first the culture ourselves and be able to tell the story, because there's a real hunger, there's a real curiosity for that story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Pause. First, I really appreciate the fact that you say we, 우리, because you could have said you, as in Koreans need to step up more. But the fact that you very naturally say 우리, we, is I very appreciate that aspect of your talk. And also I think what you said was very important. It provides a very important point for Koreans, because we are always surprised, at how non-Koreans like our traditional culture. But we also say, that's something we should promote. But you can't promote something that you don't like yourself. I mean, that's very, very hard to do. And so I think it is really a responsibility of Korea that, along with Korea's modern culture, when that interest in Korean traditional culture, when that next step is taken, that we are prepared and ready to be able to take this to the next step. Now, you talk about the clothing, the food, and the housing, but Joseph is in the food area and is now, he has combined again in his Michelin-starred restaurant, Evet, the Korean traditional ingredients with a Western flair, I would like to say. But I will let Joseph talk to you about his aspect of the Korean food culture. Joseph?
Okay, so first of all, thank you all guys for coming. As GA kindly mentioned, I'm here today to talk about Korean food, Korean charm, and what it means for the world moving over. I see, continue on from what Mark has said about the world being exposed to not just the dramas, not just the TV shows, not just the K-pop, what comes next. And I also feel that food itself is the next step. I lived in London for about 7 years. Over there, there's a lot of amazing food. It's a melting pot of different cultures. I went to every single one. The only one that I couldn't find that was substantial and didn't resonate with me the most was the Korean food. And I think that is widely changing. This is what I reflected on when preparing my notes for today. I had a lovely speech written out, and then after chatting to Lucky last night over a couple glasses of wine, I decided to throw that speech out and just tell you a story, because I think this is what we're here for. We're here for stories. And that's how I fell in love with Korean food. So it was the summer of 2016. I was here in Korea. I didn't have a Michelin star. I didn't have Young Chef or any of the awards that I had, but I had a passion for learning. I came to Korea for 1 month to learn about Korean food, and at the end I had to open up a pop-up restaurant based on those ingredients. So I would travel the world, and I did this for about 18 months, and we would do pop-up restaurants in Nepal, where we climbed Mount Everest, where we went to trains in Vietnam, we went to everywhere around the world. We went to Oman, South Africa, everywhere. And Korea was one of the countries where I thought going into it, I knew what Korean food was. I thought I'd seen enough, I've heard enough, it's going to be kimchi, it's going to be barbecue, and how wrong I was. So there was one beautiful story where I was traveling through to Jeju, and this is happenstance, I promise, and I wanted to dive with the Haenyos. I thought that was just a remarkable story that I saw that month in Huffington Post about the Haenyos, and I thought that is such a cool, unique story to Korea. So I managed to find a translator. We went down not far from here, about 5 a.m. in the morning, and I wanted to dive with them. Not pre-planned, nothing. I went down in the morning, and I was greeted by about 40 old ladies who were not happy to see me. And I said to them, this is me at 27, 26, can I come and dive with you? Can I come and learn the ingredients? I want to share the stories back in Seoul at my pop-up restaurant. They told me no. They said that I was going to slow them down. So if anyone who knows Haenyos, I thought that I would have an advantage over them, but I was actually wrong. I've since dived with them, and they are way better than I am. I'd already planned this trip, so I was sat there on the beach, and I was watching the ladies dive down. This was before Korea wave had kind of taken off. It was really just me appreciating the moment. There was one lady on the rocks who was just feeding me sea urchin. I was trying to ask her stories. By that stage, we'd had like a set format of how we would do a pop-up. We would spend 3 weeks, we would gather the information, we would do it. And I think at that moment, I realized how contrived our plan was. We were trying to extract something from that, where this was a beautiful moment where I was asking this lady, and she was just not interested in anything I had to say, and she would just shut up and give me a spoon of food. And I found that throughout my journey in Korea, that Korean people, though I sometimes feel they don't value Korean food enough, they are so loving and warm to share that food outside of Korea. And I think for me, my topic today was to talk about the charm of Korean food and what it's going to bring to the world. And for me, I think that's what it's going to bring. It's going to bring a warmth and a charm that I haven't seen in any other food culture so far. So I'll leave that story there, and I just wanted to pass on that it's the food and the people that make the charm come to life. And I think, passing on from what Mark had said, we ourselves, especially in Korea, our restaurant, we only use Korean ingredients. So fine dining is all about luxury. It's all about caviar. It's all about truffles. And for me, that is not a representation of Korean cuisine. Where I'd like to see us move to is where we can look at durup the same way that we look at caviar. We can look at monge the same way we look at truffles. And we can present that to the people coming in, because I believe personally in my heart that they will resonate with that and they will see it how we see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. As a plug, you can hear more of Joseph on my program on Arirang TV called The Globalist, in which we actually went to Evet. Evet is looking at your second Michelin star possibly this year. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But, Joseph also points out a very important thing that we need to take away from the story that he's told us. It's not maybe about the materials itself. It's not about how we package something. It's about really remembering what it is that means to us. It's the feeling, what the meaning of food, meaning of my mother's kimchi, what that means to me is something that I think really is the thing that will resonate. And that's actually the reason that it draws people in anyway. So that if we lose sight of that, then it may be we're heading into a direction where we shouldn't be in. And on that note, I think Lucky is the perfect person to take on the baton, because he will tell us that, you are one of the most immersed non-Koreans in Korean culture. I mean, I neighbored him in Korea, and he is like the best-known Indian hyung in Korea. And so if anyone knows what it's like to be immersed in Korea and what that can actually do, in terms of linking countries and peoples and people, I think it would be you, Lucky. I mean, what do you think?
First of all, good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to the Jeju Of course, thanks for this beautiful introduction. And like Ambassador Sean, she said, I'm here for a couple of years, so I'm the best example of an expat who has experienced Korean culture. It feels good, and it also makes me feel like I should try to impress the audience with my Korean. So if you allow me, can I speak Korean? 제가 한국말로 말씀드려도 되죠? 네, 감사합니다. 아침부터 다 이렇게 오셔서 네. 사실 제 입장에서는 영어나 한국어 둘 다 외국어예요. 제가 인도 사람이기 때문에 똑같은 어려운 언어이긴 하지만은 그래도 한국말이 조금 편하고 한국에서는 한국말로 소통할 때 조금 더 가깝다는 느낌이 들어서 제가 한국말로 이 세션을 할 텐데요. 오늘의 이 세션 시작하기 전에 아주 재미있는 영상을 하나 준비해 왔거든요. 먼저 영상부터 보여드리고 말씀 시작하겠습니다.
Do you know Natu?
ఎర్ర జొన్న రొట్టెలోన మిరపదొక్కు కలిపినట్టు నా పాట చూడు నా పాట చూడు నా పాట చూడు నాటు 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 వీర నాటు 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 కూర నాటు 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 పచ్చి మిరపలాగా పిచ్చ నాటు 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 పిచ్చు కత్తిలాగా వెర్రి నాటు నాటు నాటు
네, 잘 보셨죠? 이 나투나투 성이 조금 소개드리자면은 얼마 전에 오스카상에 인도 영화에서 제일 베스트 성으로 이렇게 상 탔거든요. 근데 영상에 나오시는 게 인도 말리우드 배우가 아니고 저희 주한 대사님께서 저기 직원이랑 같이 이 나투나투 성에 대사관에서 이거 촬영해서 이거 올렸거든요. 근데 이 춤이 올리자마자 인도에서 엄청나게 와이럴 돼서 아마 하루 안에 뭐 100만 명 넘게 이거를 보셨더라고요. 그래서 저도 한국에서 보고 되게 행복하고 인도와 한국이 조금 더 가까워지라는 생각이 들었거든요. 근데 제가 왜 이 영상을 보여주면서 오늘 이 주제를 시작하냐면은 제가 올해 한국에 온 지 28년차예요. 이제 아마 여기 계신 분들 그때 태어나지도 않으신 분들도 있을 텐데 이해해 주시고 한국말로 이런 속담이 있어요. 10년 지나가면 강산이 편하다. 저도 이제 강산 편하는 게 2번 맞지만은 한국에 왔을 때 가요부터 한국 문화를 접근하기 시작해서 이제 K-팝을 통해서 또 MZ 세대랑 같이 좀 친해지려고 노력 중이긴 하는데요. 개인적으로 제가 이 K-팝의 영향이 이제 인도에다가 어떤 식으로 돌아가냐면은 너무 재미있는 에피소드가 있어요. 인도에서 이제 제가 뭐 K-팝, K-컬처, K-푸드 이거를 하나하나 분리해서 이해 안 하고 하나로 해서 인도에서 기사가 나오더라고요. 인도 사람들 지금 한국 한류에 얼마나 빠지냐면은 K-crazy라는 term이 생겼어요. 그러니까 이 crazy가 되게 약간 긍정적이다는데 약간 저희 세대는 한국이라고 했을 때 88 올림픽 아니면 2002년 월드컵까지만 알고 있었는데 이제는 K-드라마, K-팝, K-푸드 통해서 인도 사람들 한국에 대한 알고 있는 정보가 너무나 많고 관심도 상당히 많아졌어요. 2년 전에 우리 교육청에서 28년 만에 인도 교육 제도를 다시 바뀌었는데 외국어 선택 과목이 있는데 그 5개 중에 중국어를 빼고 한국어를 투입시킨 거예요. 그러니까 제가 이 뉴스를 보고 상당히 많은 생각이 들었어요. 왜 한국어를 인도 모든 학교에다가 투입을 시킬까? 알고 보니까 한국에 대한 인도 젊은이들의 관심이 많아요. 여기서 하나만 또 말씀드리자면은 뭐 많이 뉴스에서나 뭐 여기저기서 인도 인구가 14억 5천 명 지금 세계에서 1등으로 인구가 많은데요. 이 인구의 40% 가까이가 19대에서 20대 초반이에요. 그러니까 이 10대, 20대 초반이 지금 학교, 고등학교 지금 약간 인도의 미래라고 우리가 말해도 들 말이 아닌데요. 이 인구가 지금 OTT 통해서 유튜브 통해서 이런 영상, 이런 K-팝, 뭐 K-푸드 보고 한국에 대한 관심이 많아지다 보니까 한국어 과목이 생긴 거고 여기서 제가 사진 하나만 또 보여드릴 건데요. 저도 3년 반 만에 코로나 때 인도 못 가서 3년 반 만에 작년 12월 달에 인도 갔다 왔거든요. 저는 상당히 많이 놀랐어요. 사진 한번 지금 혹시 볼 수 있나요? 제가 네. 그 왼쪽에 사진 보시면은 제가 어디 캡처한 사진이 아니라 제가 직접 찍은 사진이에요. 3년 반 만에 인도 가니까 그냥 동네 한 마트에 있는 사진이 제 위에 있는 사진 보시면은 한국의 모든 라면이 지금 거기 그냥 자랑하면서 이렇게 사진 하나 올렸고 그 아래 사진은 뭐 대형 마트나 뭐 아주 큰 편의점 아니라 그냥 동네 마트에 있는 라면 사진이에요. 저는 이거 보고 상당히 많이 놀랐어요. 어떻게 인도 사람들이 라면에 이렇게 관심이 많을까? 그래서 주변 친구들한테 물어보니까 오징어 게임 통해서 뭐 기생충 영화 통해서 뭐 옆집 아저씨가 자기는 차파구리를 진짜 잘 만들다고 한번 먹어보려고 이렇게 하시더라고요. 그러니까 이 많은 거 보고 저도 인도 사람들은 왜 놀랐냐면은 워낙 인도가 인구가 많고 문화가 많고 언어가 많다 보니까 한국 문화가 들어가기가 음식까지는 인도 사람한테 입에 맞을까 이렇게 고민을 많이 하고 있었거든요. 근데 이 한류 때문에 워낙 관심이 많아지고 아까 마크도 말한 것처럼 처음에는 그냥 우리에게는 그냥 K-푸드 아니면 K-컬처라고 이렇게 하는데 지금 10대, 20대는 그 후에 이 K-푸드의 단계가 뭘까? 우리가 먹을 수 있는 게 또 다양한 게 뭘까? K-패션이라고 하면은 우리가 한국에 대한 알 수 있는 문화가 또 뭘까? 이런 게가 생기다 보니까 저는 지금의 인도가 한국이랑 상당히 재미있는 케미라고 생각을 합니다. 물론 한국에서 이렇게 얘기하면은 한국 분들은 인도에 대한 아직 그 먼 나라 사실 인도라고 하면은 중간 입장에서는 어떻게 보면은 상당히 설명하기가 어려워요. 제가 인도에서 왔다고 하면 여러분들도 아마 럭키 인도 그러면은 인도에 대한 아는 게 간디 아니면은 커리 조금 또 인도에 대한 관심 있으면 코끼리 이 정도가 아마 아실 텐데요. 사실 인도가 한국보다 33배가 크고 아까 말씀한 것처럼 인구도 상당히 많고 한 나라 안에 28개 그냥 전체적으로 뭐 유니언 테리토리까지 합쳐서 30개 주로 하면은 이 30개 주가 30개 나라처럼 살다고 생각하시면 됩니다. 그 다음에 인도를 가실 때 한 나라로 간다고 생각하지 않으시고 마시고 그냥 인도 안에 여러 나라 있다고 해서 그 여러 개 문화를 들어간다고 생각하시면은 아마 인도를 이해하기가 조금 더 쉽고 저도 항상 말씀드릴 때 인도를 한마디로 설명하기가 상당히 어려운 나라예요. 민족도 10개가 있고 언어가 15개가 있고 사투리가 3,000개 있는 나라인데 어떻게 인도가 이런 나라라고 생각할 수가 있겠습니다. 근데 이 다양함이 있는 인도에서 이제 한류가 북인도 가셔도 있고 남인도 가셔도 있고 어디 가셔도 있는 게 그 전에는 그냥 큰 도시에서만 사람들이 이게 접근할 수가 있는데 코로나의 약간 blessing in disguise 같은 거 우리가 말할 수도 있겠지만은 인터넷 인도에서 상당히 많이 성장이 됐어요. 그러니까 코로나 시기에 이제 교육청에서도 이제 학교를 못 가고 규제가 있으니까 인터넷 속도도 많이 이제 개발시키고 그리고 시골하고 세컨드 타일, 투 타일 시티 뭐 전주, 대전 같은 인도에 또 뭐 두 번째 이렇게 큰 도시들이 있잖아요. 그런 게 한 40개 도시에 인터넷 성장하고 사람들한테 이 패드 같은 게 스마트폰 같은 게 익숙해지다 보니까 한국 컨텐츠를 조금 더 쉽게 볼 수가 있었어요. 물론 그 전에 태양의 후예, 대장금 뭐 이런 드라마가 인도 국가방송에 다 방송됐지만은 되게 큰 도시의 한 정해진 인구만 보고 있었지만은 아마 코로나 시기에 많은 사람들 이 플랫폼 통해서 특히 오징어 게임에 아마 이 모든 그 전에 조금씩 익숙한 드라마들의 큰 약간 문을 부신 역할을 한다고 말할 수가 있어요. 물론 뭐 엑소 뭐 이런 뭐 그룹들도 다 인기가 많았지만은 BTS도 마찬가지로 K-팝을 아주 그냥 크게 이제 인도 사람들한테 인기를 얻게 돼서 이 코로나에 아마 이 젊은 인구가 한국 한류에 조금 더 접근성을 많이 하게 돼서 지금 인도에 가시면은 한국에서 왔다고 하면은 인도 사람들이 상당히 반가워할 거예요. 꼭 한번 인도 가시게 되면은 I'm from Korea라고 하시면은 옛날에는 제가 한 10년 전에 제 친구들한테도 제가 한국에서 공부한다고 했을 때 한국에 대한 알고 있는 게 사우스 코리아, 노르트 코리아밖에 없었어요. 그리고 항상 저희 언론에서도 노르트 코리아에 대한 그런 압박, 그런 위협감만 전달돼서 약간 조금 위험한 나라라고 많이 알고 있었는데 이제는 한류 통해서 인도 사람들한테 I'm from Korea라고 하면은 BTS, Squid Game, 라면. 제가 얼마나 놀라냐면 아마 조셉 셰프님이 제게 이게 관심이 있을 텐데 얼마 전에 인도에 아주 유명한 셰프님, 인도에서 백종원 선생님만큼 인기 있는 셰프님 자기 유튜브 채널에서 고추장 레시피를 올리시더라고요. 전 그거 보고 진짜 놀랐어요. 어떻게 인도 사람한테 고추장 레시피를 공유할 그냥 근데 그 셰프님 말씀대로 한국 요리에 고추장의 역할이 얼마나 큰지 그리고 고추장을 인도 향신료랑 만들는 보다는 한국식으로 만들어야 한국 요리에 아주 큰 역할을 한다는 거 봤을 때 이제는 그냥 인도에서도 대충 우리가 한국에 알자 그냥 살짝 말하는 게 아니라 조금 더 깊이 알아가는 게 인도 사람도 한국에 대한 관심이 상당히 많이 커지지 않을까라는 생각이 듭니다.
네, 럭키님.
네. 그리고 네 이제 여기까지만 준비하는데 마침 또 끝나라고 하셔서 다행이라고 생각합니다. 네. 앞으로는 Q&A를 통해서 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다.
감사합니다. 지금 저 한국말로 하셔가지고 제가 한국말로 이어받아서 간단히 뭐 말씀을 드리긴 하지만 정말 지금 인도에서 한국이 그만큼 많이 알려져 있고 한국 라면 정말 동네 식품점에서까지 이렇게 다양한 종류의 라면이 나와 있는 걸 보면 많이 들어가 있는 건 확실히 아는데 그거를 보면서 사실은 저희는 그 받아서 느끼는 거는 이게 오히려 그러나 우리는 인도에 대해서 얼마만큼 알까? 우리 그만큼 다른 나라의 그가 이제 인도가 우리를 이렇게 배우고 알라고 하는 만큼 우리도 정말 이제는 인도에 대해서 알고 정말 쌍방향으로 인도에 대한 관심 또 이런 것을 보여줘서 이게 지금 뭐 나뚜나뚜로 지금 이렇게 하셨지만 그런 뭐 나뚜나뚜는 아주 굉장히 좋은 예지만 그것이 그냥 어떻게 보면 첫 발자국이라고 생각하고 굉장히 인도에 대한 또 우리의 관심, 우리의 지식, 또 인도를 가까이 하려고는 우리의 노력이 그만큼 더 필요하다는 그런 또 생각을 발표를 들으면서 하게 됐습니다. 굉장히 좋은 그런 교훈을 주신 것 같아요. So on that note, we're going back to our panel discussions. We have 4 panel discussants who are very active on Korean TV and media and the YouTube and they have really each have their own characters and personas on for the Korean public audience. But today they're going to give us a little bit of they're going to introduce themselves and then give us a question, something to think about among this panel. And we'll start with Mr. Yannick, who's right sitting beside Lucky. Mr. Yannick, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe start us off with a question or two?
Hello, my name is Yannick. I'm from the Netherlands. I came here for the first time in the beginning of 2017. I actually wanted to study Korean traditional medicine. So I had to study Korean at Yonsei University. While I was studying, suddenly I was approached by some agencies to do a commercial. So I was surprised because I'm from a really small town in the Netherlands. So I was like, me on TV was a little bit of a weird idea, but I really like to explore new things. So I tried it for once. I liked it, and I got actually more contacts out of that. But I still had the big plan to study Korean traditional medicine. So I was like refusing it all the time until I graduated Korean language school. So I decided to just try like a gap year for 1 year. That's when I went on the TV show Also 한국은 처음이지, and that's what actually changed my plan and my road here in Korea, I started doing more entertainment work, and what I like the most is what I hear about all of their stories as well. For me, the biggest thing is that I love Korea is the food. And if you hear their stories, it sounds like food is the middle point here in Korea. As Joseph said, Korean food gives you warmth. It's like when you eat Korean food, it's not just eating the food, it's the whole thing. You do it kind of together. You don't really eat alone. All the side dishes creates like a really cozy feeling, what I really love, because we don't have this kind of food culture in the Netherlands. So actually the funny thing is some of my friends always ask me, why do you stay in Korea? Like the main reasons for me is the nature, the food, and the people. Like the food and the people give the warmth. And then my friends are saying like, why are you not going to the Netherlands? Like you can eat Korean food there. But I can eat the Korean food there if I make it myself, but you don't have this chong in the Netherlands. Like you don't eat the food together like how you eat it in Korea, which I really love. So I like the reason that Joseph actually came to Korea. He told me before when we talked, he went to America and worked in a restaurant there, but he missed the Korean food, and that's just because like the warmth you get in just eating the Korean food, like it's not just eating, it's like a whole experience. That's why my question actually goes to Mark, because also his story about the documentary is very interesting for me to hear. So in this documentary, they all go to Michelin star restaurants, but I'm really wondering, why do you think they picked this place far outside for like a monk's place? Because like it's not a Michelin star, it's so totally different. Why Korea only for this kind of concept?
Yeah, I think it's a sign to me of how the base level of knowledge of Korea is going up over time. And as Lucky said, people used to just know North Korea and South Korea, right? And then they started to know Korean food. And I'm actually coming to Korea from New York. And even when I left New York in 2010 to come to Korea, there was already this kind of vibrant scene of Korean food starting to take off, and everyone knows bulgogi in New York, and everyone knows kimchi in New York, and everyone knows kind of these staples of Korean food now. So this base knowledge has gone up and up. And so I think when this Netflix documentary, Chef's Table, that I mentioned, when they came to Korea, I think perhaps they sensed that already people start to know about the main parts of Korean food, which I also love. I eat bulgogi and kimchi as often as possible myself, and also I'm actually a big fan of Evet and love the food at Evet as well. I think, though, to your question, because now some people start to know about this part of Korean food, they kind of felt like they had to go one step deeper. What's this deeper meaning that we can show people in Korean food? And so they felt they had to go into the mountains, and because my remarks concentrated on Korean tradition, I think that's what now people are starting to go towards. Not just the food of today, the tteokbokki of today. If you go to Myeongdong, big tourist area, people go there for the little pojangmacha night markets, right? And it's that kind of like modern food. But now people want to know, where did this come from? How did we get to bulgogi? How did we get to tteokbokki? Okay, well, a lot of this food has soy sauce in it. A lot of it has kanjang in it. What is this culture of jang in Korea? This culture of fermentation in Korea that is almost in all of these foods. So they want to go this one step deeper. And so that's why I think they ended up in the mountains with this monk who showed them the hundreds of years of history of preparing food in this way. So yeah, I think that's really the answer to that question. It's people now that they start to know what is it, now they want to know why and where did it come from. So going one step further, and that's actually another reason I love your restaurant at Evet, because you're going back to show the tradition and how did this food come to be, and explaining every dish, the story of every dish. Where did this fermentation come from? Where did this ingredient come from? I think that's the next step of the wave.
But Yannick has brought up a very interesting point, because he talks about when the chef's table goes to a lot of other countries to go to a Michelin star restaurant, and we have our own Michelin star restaurant with Evet. So when they go to deep in the mountain, does it mean that maybe they feel that Korean cuisine is a little bit maybe too foreign? I mean, does it feel like maybe, going to a mountain to a monk maybe makes Korean food less accessible to a normal non-Korean?
I'll just say before kicking over to Joseph, because I think this is your question to answer. But
I mean, you can
I will just say I think this Netflix Chef's Table was filmed before the Michelin system was launched in Korea, before they started rating restaurants, and certainly before Evid. And I definitely think today, if they came, they would have come to your restaurant and based it on you, because you've brought that tradition and that deep sense of hundreds of years of culture into your restaurant. So I think it used to be more inaccessible, but now it's fully available at great restaurants like this in Seoul. Yeah. I want Netflix to come back and film
Joseph,
your restaurant.
do you find that people think Korean ingredients or Korean food is not something they could, make or really like?
It's funny that Mark brought up that exact episode, because that was one of the episodes. Like, if you talk to, like, growing up, well, in my chef career, I've worked in 7 countries professionally, apart from the pop-ups, which probably takes you to like 32 countries that I've actually cooked for people in. But if I talk to any of my chef friends in the UK or Scandinavia or Australia or the US, their chef reference for Korean food is that episode of that. And that is, like, most of the time, we're the only English-speaking fine dining restaurant in Seoul at the moment. So we have any really good traveling chef, they always kind of stop by us, and most of the talking points is that actual episode. But it was so left of field. It's season 3, episode 1. And up until that point, it is just your classic restaurants. And I think that it was chosen as a way to really showcase not what cooking is at the high level, which is accolades and shiny big plaques, but what chefs should aim for, which is the integrity of the food. And I think it was just a bold and great choice by the producers to do that. How they stumbled upon that, I do not know, but I'm extremely glad they did.
I mean, it's something to think about, and something really, it's sort of like a transitional moment in a way for today. And I mean, they should definitely come back and go to Evid. If I get a chance.
I might also mention that before this, I didn't know that we were going to plug Evid this much. I promise this is not a promotional.
Right. Yeah, this is it. Okay, that's it. Okay, no more Evid. But anyway. To carry on this discussion, we have Ms. Kaing to Annick's left. Ms. Kaing, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe add on to the conversation?
안녕하세요. 저는 미얀마에서 온 캉이라고 합니다. 저는 13년 전에 한국어를 처음으로 배웠고요. 10년 전에 한국으로 유학을 왔습니다. 그리고 제가 한국에 처음 왔을 때 동방신기라는 K-pop 그룹을 좋아해서 왔는데요. 그리고 13년 만에 제 꿈을 이뤘어요. 그 동방신기의 최강차민 오빠를 직접 만났고요. 그래서 아까 말씀하신 그 K-pop, K-크레이지들의 성공 사례가 아닌가 싶습니다. 그리고 지금은 제가 엔터테이너로 일을 하고 있는데요. 그것도 제가 여기서 학교 다녔고 일을 하면서 한국 관련 정보라든지 한국의 학교 들어가는 방법, 한국에 살면 이런 걸 알아야 된다. 이런 관련 영상을 많이 찍어서 올렸는데 그렇게 하다 보니까 지금 73만 명의 팔로워를 보유를 하고 있고요. 그래서 지금 제 다음 목표는 한국에서 연기를 하는 건데요. 그래서 지금 연기도 배우고 있고 지금 아까 럭키 오빠가 말씀하신 게 아까 그 마크 오빠도 말씀하신 게 한국 K-팝이라든지 드라마라든지 이제 관심을 가지기 시작을 했다라고 말씀을 하셨는데 저는 이렇게 지금까지 느끼면서 이제는 관심보다는 여기 넘어와서 여기서 생활을 하고 있는 외국인들이 너무나도 많고 한국어를 못하는 정도가 아니라 엄청나게 훌륭하게 한국어를 유창하게 하고 있는 외국인 그런 분들도 많고 해서 앞으로 이런 K-드라마라든지 그런 K-팝에 예를 들어서 오징어 게임에 그 외국인 분이 나왔는데 한국어 잘 못하는 역할이었는데 앞으로는 외국인, 한국인 그런 구별 없이 한국어를 이렇게 지금도 우리가 유창하게 잘하고 있는 것처럼 드라마라든지 이런 그 콘텐츠에 그럼 차별 없이 할 그런 콘텐츠라든지 영화라든지 외국인도 같이 한국어를 하는 그런 콘텐츠들 많이 나오지 않을까. 그거에 대해서 저는 가능하다고 생각을 하고 있었는데 럭키 오빠도 어떻게 생각하고 있는지, 그게 가능할지 그런 거 좀 여쭤보고 싶었습니다.
Lucky, I think this is you. 말씀하세요. 한국말로.
일단 충분히 가능하다고 생각. 이미 되게 지금 제가 96년에 왔을 때 해도 TV에 나오는 외국인 2-3명밖에 없었어요. 사실 뭐 이다도시 누나랑 뭐 이한우 선생님 몇 명밖에 없었는데요. 지금은 TV를 키면은 외국인이 너무 많이 나와서 제가 사실 좀 질투감이 생긴 정도로가 조금 덜 나왔으면 좋지 않을까라는 생각이 들기는 하는데 이게 사실 다양한 거. 한국에 제가 개인적으로 많이 배우고 인도 방송사 미팅 할 때도 항상 말하는 거는 한국 시청자분들은 외국인 시선에서 한국 보는 게 되게 그런 컨텐츠 되게 좋아하다 보니까 저희 같은 외국인한테 그런 기회도 많이 생기지만은 반대로 인도에서도 외국인 위주로 인도가 어떤 나라 될지 아니면 미얀마나 각자 나라에 그런 게 조금 비슷한 방송들이 좀 생겼으면은 바람인데요. 지금은 충분히 외국인한테 기회가 많고 앞으로 많아질 수밖에 없어요. 왜냐하면 한국 시청자, 구독자분들은 외국인의 시선을 상당히 관심이 많이 갖고 있다 보니까.
그 옛날에 보면 이렇게 한국 드라마에서도 주로 외국인들을 무슨 외국인 사위 뭐 그런 역할로 드라마에 많이 오고, 사실은 지금 아까 마크랑 되겠지만 한국 그 방송에서 외국인이 정말 이렇게 어떻게 보면은 외국인만의 어떤 그런 자리를 차지하는 데 큰 계기를 했던 것이 이제 비정상회담이라는 이제 프로가 이제 굉장히 어떻게 보면은 그냥 어떤 그런 하나의 역할을 하는 외국인이 아니라 외국인들이 굉장히 어떻게 보면은 그 나름의 전문성과 그 의견을 중시하는, 그러니까 they could actually be themselves in a way and talk about things that related to their countries, and as a part of introducing that to the Korean audience. So it's very important, but I think we're still not quite there yet. Mark, do you feel like that's in the near future?
Yeah, I think as both of our panelists have mentioned, I think there's a lot more foreigners speaking Korean here, and I think there's been progress over time. First, taking the 외국인 사위 roles in the early dramas, and then to your point on the show that Lucky and I participated in, we had the chance to speak in Korean and be ourselves and show our own content and knowledge. And I think that's where it goes from here. To come back to Kang's original question, I think from here, I think what we've all noticed is that now there's just a lot of foreigners who speak Korean. And it used to be enough just to be a foreigner here speaking Korean, and that was a novelty, right? So the first wave was just, oh, if you speak Korean, come on this show. And we're beyond that now. So I think now where we're at is, if you're a foreigner and you speak Korean, you also need to have your own area of expertise that you can speak to uniquely when you make your content, right? So I think, like when our show ended, 비정상회담, I think a lot of people thought, oh, I can just make my YouTube and go to a cafe and speak Korean and upload it on YouTube and people will watch it. And then we realized, no, that's not interesting to people. What do you uniquely have to say as a foreigner who speaks Korean, right? And so everyone kind of came to their own areas that they had a unique specialty. And so for me, it's finance, which is my main job, and also Hanok and Korean traditional art and culture, which I do a lot of activities in. So I can now speak to those things, and now those are the TV shows I do, not just any TV show for a foreigner who speaks Korean, but in my area of expertise. And we each have those areas of expertise. So I think there's amazing things for Kai-Ying and all of us to do as foreigners who speak Korean, but in our areas of expertise. And I think that you're learning acting is amazing, right? Because that is a very hard skill to learn, and that will be another area of expertise that makes you unique among all the people who speak Korean. Yeah.
I think it's a very important point that you know the expatriates who live and have become a part of our family all add a very unique now a layer to Korea that is again you know not just on their viewpoints but in actually what they do and how they participate and how they contribute to Korean society is going to I think also give us a very unique future to look forward to. On that note, we're going to move on to Miss Melody. Miss Melody, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and join the conversation?
안녕하세요. 저 프랑스에서 온 멜로디라고 합니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 저는 한국에서 2017년에 왔고 처음에는 워킹 홀리데이를 하면서 한국 애들한테 영어를 가르치는 선생님이었어요. 근데 한국에 너무 사랑하게 됐어. 한국에 더 있고 싶은 마음으로 기회를 저한테 왔어요. 예능을 하면 어떨까라는 회사를 연락을 받았어요. 그래서 그때부터 TV 모델, 패션쇼, 뭐 광고 이런 활동을 많이 해봤어요. 근데 지금은 KTV에서 최고의 재발견 MC로서 활동하고 있는데 그 프로그램에서 다양한 한국인들 만나서 K-웨이브 소개를 하는 프로그램이에요. 그래서 매주에 진짜 한국 문화, 뭐 한국의 매력 잘 배우는 종이에요. 그래서 갑자기 너무 떨려서 생각 안 났는데 제가 물어보고 싶은 게 영어로 해볼게요. 왜냐면 생각이 안 나요.
You can do it in French if you like.
Je peux le faire en français. 네. So because we're talking a lot about how Korean culture has evolved in the last couple of years, I was actually really curious because, for example, through K-pop idols, since we're talking about peace and prosperity, so for example, BTS now joining the UN or 17 doing as ambassador of the UNESCO and all of these things, I was really curious about how our panelists were thinking since Korea is becoming the front face of so many things to the world. How can Korea play a role in this peace and prosperity movement that we're trying to promote through this seminar?
Okay, that is a deep question, and I think I'll just throw it open to all three, and as well as some of the our discussants, if you wanted to add on. But we'll start with you, Lucky, and maybe work this way.
Actually, it's a very good question, and fits completely with this forum, actually. Well, I always believed like culture exchange is a very, very important part of bringing countries together and cultures together. And it plays a very important role in peace and especially like environment related issues as well. So I think even me, like being in Korea, like I came to Korea as a businessman running a trading business or being on a TV channel or running a restaurant, I still think like what my role in Korea as of now will help a lot of Indians who are coming to Korea in next 10 years to understand and believe Korea will be a country which will be a very important partner for them. And this does not only bring opportunity for them only for economy or in that perspective. I think it will also help them to discuss on issues and how we can make our life, our living. When we talk about peace, it's not only about one. There are multiple issues. We are going through war in certain areas. We have racist issues. All this could be solved by this. And I think because Korea has a very important position in the world map right now, I think Korea is and will be playing a very important role for this.
Mark or Joseph, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was pretty much took all the things I was going to say there. I think that's probably it, right? With the peace and prosperity tends to break down when cultures don't understand each other's culture. And where Korea is at the world right now and sharing, I would say, quite a positive message in various different aspects, I think we are on the good road to that.
And I think Elodie's question is great because it gets to the heart of this forum. You know, you mentioned BTS going to the UN and to the White House to meet President Biden, and what impacts can this have on world peace? What K-pop can do, what Hallyu can do for this? And my answer to that, I think, is very similar to what I was just discussing with Kai-ying about even the foreigners in Korea who speak Korean. And I think the important thing is, because of this moments of such interest in Korea, in the Korean language and in Hallyu, we were discussing this idea of soft power that brings a lot of soft power. And what do I mean by that is, it's almost like if you speak Korean or are connected to Korea, people will now all of a sudden give you a microphone. And that's what we were talking about, you know, the foreigners here, we are all kind of handed a microphone. And now, obviously, globally, if BTS, because of their fame, they'll get handed a microphone. Not only a microphone, they'll be brought to the White House or to the UN. But the question is the same. Now that the world is so interested in Korea to hand us all microphones, what will we say, right? We have to have something to say now. So we have to have something to say maybe about Korean culture that's a little bit more deep and informative. I was impressed when, you know, BTS went to the UN and to the White House. It wasn't just a fan meeting with the UN or fan meeting with Biden. They had prepared thoughtful remarks about diversity and inclusion, which was one of their big talking points. And a point that we actually in the US need to hear a lot about and learn a lot about diversity and inclusion. So when they were handed the microphone, they had something to say. So I think that's what it comes down to. The spotlight is not enough. Once we all are handed this mic, hopefully we have something thoughtful that we've thought out to say. And that something to say, that's what will impact the world and the world peace.
I think that's a very important point that you made. Any one of our discussants want to sort of, yes, Yannick.
Actually, this is another thing what I agree on. Like, Korea is actually a strong medium maybe in world peace, because what I said before is like food brings people together, but also the interest, the love for Korea, the music brings people together. So it doesn't matter what color you are, which country, which religion. If you share the same love for something, which is obviously food and music and dramas in Korea is like a big thing, you kind of feel like one big family. So I think this is a really strong medium here in Korea to bring be a big part in bringing world peace.
Yes, on that very, significant subject, we're going to move on to our very last, but of course not least, discussant, Ms. Carla. Ms. Carla, thank you for waiting, but tell us a little bit about yourself and jump into the conversation.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Carla. I'm from Mexico. I've been in Korea for 6 years, but my very first Korean friend was almost 20 years ago. So I've been immersed with Korean culture since a really young age and have a lot of Korean friends since growing up. So there's going to be a little bit about me. I'm an actress. Since I'm going to go to topics, I'm going to not talk about me and go to really strong stuff. I love when you talk about the food. I have a friend that just came this year to Korea only for 3 months for a medical residence. Like, he didn't know anything about Korea. He just came for that medical residence. He just came back to Mexico. He texted me yesterday telling me, I miss Korea. I learned studying how to cook Korean food. And I was like, a doctor who doesn't know anything about Korea fell in love so much with Korean food that now he's making his own Korean food in Mexico. So that's amazing what Korean food can do. Also, just from the last topic you say, me as an actress and influencer for Korean culture, I get a lot of messages and DMs from fans, and especially K-pop fans. And one of the things that shocked me the most was a girl that said, K-pop saved my life. Like, I was so depressed, and meeting this group actually helped me to get over my depression. So it's how amazing this Korean culture is doing it. It's amazing. And also, what Mark said is what is next after K-pop and K-drama. It's also the Mother Handbook, that which I actually love, Mother Handbooks. I know it's not real handbook, so I'm sorry. But me, I love having events where I can use them. So I have my handbook, I got sponsored, and every party I have, I wear it, and I'm like going on the street feeling my best self, which I love. Also K-beauty, me as a woman, I don't know how much you guys do it, but K-beauty is also really important. It's not only K-dramas now or K-pop. We have the fashion, because it's really trendy. Like I go on Pinterest and I try to type like what to wear on summer 2023, and you will see a lot of K-fashion too. But on a really not that happy note about this, me as an active actress, and I know the hustle of getting like foreigner roles. They have always a stereotype of in dramas of what is a foreigner. I've been on sets and they tell me, oh, is that you don't look foreigner enough. Well, I didn't know that I didn't look foreigner. And I came relatively like not that long ago where already the foreigners were more immersed in Korean culture. We are more already like hung up and telling me that there are not enough roles for me because I'm a woman, I'm not blonde, and they're like making this racism. I want to know, especially like Loki Oppa, you've been here the longest. How's been your experience with racism here?
Wow, getting all the good questions. So, 저는 항상 이거를 되게 비교적으로 이렇게 말해요. 사실 세상에 어디 가도 there is no bed of roses anywhere in the world. 뭐 제가 한국에 와서 인종차별 당한 사례가 없다고 말하면 거짓말이고 당연히 있었지만은 제가 제 생활을 여기 하고 있으니까 그런 일이 생긴 거고 만약에 제가 인도에 있었으면은 인도에도 그런 일들이 생기지 않을까 싶어요. So my point is like you don't face racism in one particular country. You can face that all over the world. So how you cope up with that is a very important thing. How you train your mentality, how you to want to prove yourself from that is very important. So I think, first of all, if you have that one instance where you have felt racially abused or like you felt like you're not given a fair chance, you can also think of all the other good things to balance that. It's my personal thing, just how to live in a foreign country. If I keep on picking up all the bad experience, like that person was not good to me, this is not good to me, but also on the contrary, there are a lot of good things. I personally think if I have 10 things to do in a day, and I have 6 good experience and 4 bad experience, I still have a better percentage of having a good experience in my life. But at the same time, you should not suffer and say like, okay, this is okay, I can live with it. We can talk, we can discuss, and if we cannot completely fix it, we can at least understand feelings and make a better platform for future expats or even Koreans who are living here.
Anyone who wants to jump in and add to the conversation, you're all welcome to do so. I think yes.
I think for me, my experience in Korea was always a very good one because I started from living with a Korean family and always been surrounded by Koreans, and that's how I learned Korean. And one thing I do, like whenever I meet foreigners in Korea, they're always talking, oh, I'm not included in Korea, I cannot make Korean friends, I'm having difficulties feeling included in the community. But I also feel like it's also because they have this expectation that everyone will welcome them instead of making the first move, which is very unfortunate because, I'm sorry, but Koreans are very shy. They're not the type to go first to someone, so you have to make the effort to first go and to first break that wall. So that's what I like about being in the entertainment industry is that I get to make the first step and I get to try new things first, and then people who look at me, they're like, oh, she's doing it, so I can do it too. And so I think that's what's amazing, and that's what Mark was saying. I think that was very good. We have to think as a we and not me versus them. It's us. And then the more you go to them first, the more they're like, oh, wait, it's a foreigner, I'm scared, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to speak. But the more you speak to them, the more you poke them and you bother them and you make jokes with them, the more they're like, oh, wait, this is a person too. Oh, wait, I can be friends with this person. Oh, wow, we have a lot in common. And I love breaking those barriers. So I think if we make the effort all together to think like that, also these issues will be also fixed very well.
I agree with that as well, because I actually have, of course, I have a lot of foreign friends, but I actually have a lot of Korean friends as well. But a lot of foreign friends tell me it's so hard to get Korean friends or like be accepted in the company, or like they always tell me it's impossible to be accepted as a foreigner. But I actually disagree, because in my case, I've been accepted to many families and many friends, and I think it's just the own effort you put into, and it's about understanding some other culture and accepting another culture. Like you want to live in Korea, then sometimes you have to set away some of your own like comfortabilities. Like you just want to accept and embrace some other culture if you also want to be in their culture. So I think it's just all about your own effort.
Thank you all for. Carly, did you want to? I don't know. I think it was very, very important for you to talk about this subject, because we don't normally understand the other person's point of view, especially because, you know, when I appreciated Mark talking about uri, us. In Korea's world, uri has never included people that don't look like us. It's always been, uri has also always been Korean, and then, you know, everyone else has been sort of non-Korean. But it is, I think, you know, Korea, as Korea becomes a part and a part of the global community, and as Korean culture is something that is a part of the global cultural community. We do really need to open our eyes to the fact that we is definitely going to involve everyone here, yeah, and hopefully the presence of everyone here will help us through that transition. I think it's something that we definitely need to do, and definitely need to do well and fast. And hopefully you know, all of you speaking and talking and about this will help us do that. Yeah, Carla, yes.
Yes, like for me, what you're saying is something super important for me. That is like breaking all the stereotypes of what is a foreigner, what is an Asian, what is a Korean. Because like I'm Mexican, and whenever I say Mexican, one of the first things they always say is like, "You are too white. Your English is so good. Where you learn it?" And I'm like, "Thank you." So I think that breaching this stereotype of what is a foreigner for yourself, or like what is a Mexican or what is a Latina, into, or if on the other side, I go to Mexico and I got bullied before because, why you're friends with the Koreans that before was not Korean, everyone was Chinese for them. So it's like, no, like they're not Chinese. My friends are Korean and they speak Spanish. They understand what you're saying. So don't be rude. I think it's a lot of breaking stereotypes, giving a lot of love and self-respect, and the agreement to disagree. Like I cannot be totally in agreement with what you're saying, but I will always respect you. So I think these type of forums help us a lot to speak. And now that we have a microphone, like Mark said, have something to say and work on it. Not just like, oh yes, I'm a foreigner and I'm pretty and I'm, no. It's like now take responsibility we have and help others to get there. I'm always trying to connect my idol friends with Mexican producers or LA producers, because I would love to make more connections about Latin music with K-pop, and I love that. Or Mexican music, I don't know.
Well, it's something definitely to look forward to, I think, Carla. I think it's time to sort of, turn to our... I know you've been dying to ask questions, but now's your chance. Yes, I see a hand right up.
Thank you, Ambassador Son. Thank you for the panelists and discussants for giving us a very enlightening and encouraging point. But I'd like to point out another fact or aspect which is not uncomfortable to us about Korean food. I have been working as a Korean diplomat for more than 25 years. So living as a diplomat gives us many good points or merit. One of them is giving me a chance for traveling around the world. I counted the numbers of the business trip to the world. The number is around 100 times. So I can stay at the 5-star hotel, the luxury hotel, Kempinski, Hyatt, you name it. But whenever I stay in this luxury hotel, I was so frustrated and disappointed because in this luxury hotel, there is no Korean restaurant. You can see Chinese restaurant, Mexican restaurant, Indian restaurant, Japanese restaurant, French restaurant, Italian, but there is no Korean restaurant. Do you know why? To the Korean diplomat, I think this luxury hotel is kind of battleground for the global food. Or we agree that there is a growing consensus or awareness and preference about the Korean food, but unfortunately, we do not see any Korean restaurant in the luxury hotel. Do you know any handicap of Korean food?
I think definitely, Joseph, that this is for you.
Really good question, I think. I think in general, we shouldn't judge hotel food, as my personal opinion. I think the speed in which Korean food, Korean culture is going is not, it's going like that. And I think in 5 years' time, when you go to travel, there will be, I personally believe there will be a Korean restaurant in the hotels. This is not my little belief that I think it's going to happen. I'm currently building a restaurant in London at the moment. We were competing with 10 other very good restaurants. The only reason we were chosen to take a hot spot on the corner in Soho was because we were a Korean restaurant. And it's the same the world over. If I could build 20 restaurants, if I had the ability to build 20 restaurants now in the world, I physically could with the offers that are coming through to build restaurants in Shanghai that's Korean-based, in LA, in the UK, in Australia. The demand for Korean restaurants, I think in 10 years or even 5 years when you travel on the business trip, there will be a Korean restaurant in there.
Yes. I think if anyone can tell you for sure, that would be Joseph. So, and his restaurant might be, well, he wouldn't do a restaurant in a hotel, but you're not going to rule anything out.
I would have to do something that I thought, I think with everything and me as a chef at the moment, what I'm trying to do is work out what type of chef I want to be.
Oh, okay.
When I first opened the restaurant, I wanted to be all this stuff, but I think if it had a lot of merit and had a lot of charm, I would.
True. I mean, who knows where your future will lie. Mark is holding the mic.
I just want to say one thing quickly to your point, which is, I said earlier, I think some of this starts with us valuing our own culture more first here, and we should all start believing that Korean restaurants should be in hotels. So my interesting question back to you is, think of all the top hotels in Seoul, Four Seasons and Hyatt and all of these. Think of all the restaurants you go to, the top hotels in Seoul. How many of them are Korean restaurants? Almost no top hotels in Seoul have Korean restaurants, always Chinese, Japanese, and Western. So with the exception of maybe Shilla Hotel has the Michelin star Korean restaurant. So we have to start first valuing our own food and putting it in our own restaurants to show people that it deserves to be there. Yeah.
Good point. We have time for maybe one more question. No? Well, I think we're almost closed, but we have a minute left. What do you think? Well, I want to sort of do a quick question around. Okay, tell me one thing that you know about Korea that Koreans don't know about Korea. One sentence. Mark.
I always like to talk about my hanok, and most Koreans might not know that there's a tradition in Korean roof tiles,
Okay, we're getting okay.
which is called sumakse, and they're very beautiful, ornate pieces of Korean roof work, which are very artistic.
And Hanok, you should live in Hanok.
I think it's a beautiful place to live.
Joseph.
I'm very fascinated by Korean alcohol. I'll talk fast so we don't chew up too much time.
Apple?
Korean alcohol.
Alcohol.
We have a brand called Oh My God, inspired by the cut. Until 1993, you couldn't brew Korean alcohol with rice because there wasn't that much rice in Korea. I think that's a pretty cool fact to learn about, and that's my piece.
Lucky?
Most Koreans, when I came to Korea, they said about Hanminjok. I would like to say Korea and India started their cultural exchanges 2,000 years ago when Kim Surowang, he married an Indian princess. So I think this multicultural started back in the 2,000 years ago. Yeah.
So it's not a recent event.
It's not a recent event. It's all the Kimhae Kimchis, half of them are Indians.
Yes. Yes. I think that's right. All the kimhae kimchis, you have Indian blood in you. Yes.
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 I'm
Yannick.
opening a restaurant there very soon.
I actually have no idea. I think I'm not sure if I know something about Korea that Koreans don't know. But there's an interesting fact in Orini de Kongwon. There is a statue of a man that's from the Netherlands. It's actually the first Dutch person, or the first Western person in Korea. He's called Pak Jan, and his full name was Jan Janse Weltevree.
Right? The first non-Westerner in Korea was a Dutch.
The first Westerner in Korea was Dutch.
Dutch. Good, good. So, Kain?
한국이 전 세계에서 우리를 제일 많이 쓰는 나라래요. 그래서 우리나라, 우리 엄마, 우리 가족을 쓰는데 다른 나라에서는 my country, my mom, my dad. 그래서 한국이 엄청 우리 끈끈한 그런 게 너무 많은가 봐요. 그래서 아까 말하는 인종, 뭐 그런 차별 이런 것도 제가 한국어를 배우고 문화를 이해하고 한국 사람들의 그런 거 뭐랄까요? 그 사소한 그런 행동이라든지 그런 것까지 알아보려고 하니까 다가가는 것도 그렇게 어렵지 않더라고요. 그래서 여기서 적응 못하고 가시는 외국인 친구들도 있는데 서로 알아가 보고 그러면은 여기서 사는데 좀 어려움이 없을 것 같습니다.
우리를 강조해라.
네, 우리 다 같이 우리로.
네, 멜로디.
이거 한국 사람들은 모르는 거 잘 모르겠는데 이제 파리에서 파리 바게트 찾을 수 있어요.
There's a Paris baguette in Paris. Carla.
Okay, well, so this is not in Korea, and maybe not many Koreans know this, but I have the bad habit of not watching the news because I'm really sentimental and always get sad. So I only know facts of this news. There is that for the Korean War, many of the American soldiers were actually Mexican. And also the connection between Mexico and Korea are so good, becoming better and better. There's now a street in Mexico named after Korea. So that's
what's the street called?
I don't remember.
Okay, something to Google, something to.
But it's good.
neighbor.
Like it's really it's like a Korean day. Like they make a festivity, like a holiday. Now there's like a kind of holiday in the street in Mexico that came from Korea for all the first immigrants that came from the war to Mexico.
Okay, there's a street in Mexico named after Korea. It's your job to find what it is. Anyway,
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much to all our discussants. Thank you all for being here and listening and getting all these so valuable insights about us, which includes everyone on this stage. So thank you very much.